So, welcome to Inside Chat. I'm your host, LA, and today I am delighted to tell you that I have with me HWA's Chief Engineer and Team Manager, Nicola Palarchi. So, thank you so much for joining me, Nicola. It's a pleasure to see you.
Hello. Thank you very much for contacting me and for this chance to have a little chat. I really appreciate the effort and actually the program. I think it's really good to let everybody have an inside look about what Formula 2 is and what every team is about. So very nice to meet you two all.
Thank you. That's lovely of you to say, and it's a pleasure to meet you. So, what I always like to start off with is discovering a little bit about yourself, your role, and a history of the team.
Yes, sure. So I started this year as a chief engineer for the Formula 2 and the Formula 3 project at HWA Race Lab. I joined after, let's say, some history in DTM. I've been working for Audi, which was the direct competitor of HWA, being a Mercedes, being running the Mercedes car. So I jump on the other side of the barricade but just for different program. I'm very, let's say, very focused, very happy to be joining the team. The team has a long history. Started in 1998. The founder, Hans Werner Aufrecht, was also founder of AMG or IMG, which it's probably well known in the motorsport or even automotive industry. And after his stint at IMG, he decided to move and he created HWA, which comes from the initial of his name, which basically took over the motorsport branch of IMG. And that's all it started. So they started DTM, GT cars, obviously GT3, GT4 that are still being manufactured here. And then 2 years ago, they started the adventure in the Formula. So with a brand new Formula 3 team, and basically first with a partnership and then taking over what was Arden in the Formula 2 championship. So there was let's say a diversion from the usual field. Nevertheless, the team or the company was involved with the Formula, being the producer of the Mercedes engine for the Formula 3 car, which was probably one of the most successful engine in the recent history of Formula 3, dominating for several seasons. And this is basically the story up to today.
You've had some quite relative success in DTM and also in Formula 3 with your P5 finishes and the P7. That's an outstanding result to have, for a new team in Formula 3, but certainly carried over from DTM. So I guess that expertise was brought across. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. But it's let's say Formula 2 and Formula 3 is a really, really different environment. And we're going from, being manufacturer baked to basically customer or, being supporting young drivers without a big manufacturer behind you. So it's a very different environment. Requires, let's say, is the same field, motorsport, but it's done in a very different way. And I think this is the biggest challenge for a big company. Because at the end of the day, HWA is a big company, has over 300 employees, a structure that is closer to the manufacturer side than the race team. So it's a big organization, and Formula 2 is designed, let's say, to be agile and quick, which sometimes doesn't cope well. So things needed to be adapted, but we have the advantage of a very strong structure. There are a lot of resources, obviously, which are carried over from the past. So it's an interesting mix, and I think the most important or the most difficult part of it's to get the best out of both worlds. So.
Yes, yeah, and regarding yourself and your own expertise, you have quite a vast background, in engineering and vehicle dynamics. Team Rosberg, has popped up there, and even all the way back to Caterham, which I kind of feel like everybody I come across seems to have had some kind of association with that team. But so you've obviously brought your own expertise as well to HWA.
Yes, yeah, I mean this is one of the main reasons for me to join. Basically, I started actually in GP2, or even before was Formula 3000 International, which was teaming Formula 1 as the Formula 2 is doing now. So it's a kind of closing a loop, going back to where I started, just in a slightly different position. So I've done the GP2, went to Formula 1, then did DTM, IMSA in the US. So it's a kind of, let's say, a diverse kind of background, which for sure I feel is helping me, dealing with a different part of the company, for example, because you need to know a little bit the way the people work. You need to know how a small company or a small race team works, and like a big company and a manufacturer works, because this is for sure a big advantage, because you need to know how to tackle both parts and how to have everybody to work together. So this is the main challenge, besides obviously getting results on the racetrack, which is quite important, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So why did HWA decide on the feeder series? What does the team gain from it?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, there is every company needs a challenge, and I think that having nothing else to to show in the GT or in DTM, I think that taking over the Formula team, it was a good challenge for everyone in the company, just to show and get also new expertise on board, because once you do DTM for 20 years and you work GT cars for 15 years, you kind of specialize yourself, and as a big company you want to broaden your spectrum. And I think that Formula 2 and Formula 3 are the best option you can do. Obviously it's very difficult, the market is tough, the competition is very tough. I find out that the level of Formula 2 teams is incredibly high, even the Formula 3 ones, obviously. So I think that the challenge that was that the company looked for.
So you mentioned the collaboration with Arden in 2019 for Formula 2, and you just elaborate a little bit on that for us, and then also just explain if how the team came to be in their own right in 2020, and was that always the plan?
Well, I don't know if it was always the plan, but it evolved in that direction. Let's say I think that Arden was willing to focus more on other series, because again, the Formula 2 is a big challenge, and also, for everyone, on the financial, on the organization side. And at some point, you might want to maybe refocus your company, especially if you grow so much as Arden did, and working very different fields and championship. Maybe there was an aim to refocus on that part, and HWA then wanted to get more involved. So I think that this in the end is what happened. 2019 there was a collaboration. Some of the engineers, the mechanics were still from Arden. Some of the engineers joined, and it was good in terms of results, and it carried over. Some of the good things, other things changed, but at the end of the day, sometimes it's also true that Germans and British don't always go together well. But this is what, at the end of the day, there was a decision to acquire the complete operation on the German side. And that's where 2020 started. Obviously, again, that the team had also, some very difficult situation. If we talk about, drivers that had unfortunate outcome of the racing, so it all the team in 2020 suffered a little bit of this, and this is one of the reasons. Then basically 2021 is a kind of new start for the team, as for the Formula 2 we're talking about, obviously, and is a kind of new team that has been, let's say, restructured, and the restructuring is still ongoing, and is a new phase, and that's one of the reasons as well. Again, that I'm here just trying to help in this particular phase.
So regarding 2020, once you had gone into Formula 2 in your own right, were you able to replace the staff that you perhaps lost in that collaboration? Did you already have the staff and expertise on site? How did that work?
Yes, I mean, in 2019, basically the DTM program ended. There was a shift of personnel from the DTM to the Formula team, and some of the other were coming new. Some other mechanics, for example, were coming new, and engineers were coming from other teams. So there was a little bit of everything. Let's say there was a bit, expertise from many places, or other people that were working in the DTM joining the Formula team. It was more a transition, let's say, which basically build the basis to then develop the team for this year onwards.
Yeah, something that's interested me along the way, and I know will interest our followers, is more of a logistical side of how Formula 2, or how HWA specifically, travels to circuits. And, once you're at the circuit, how you set up, where you set up, and how you navigate around F1.
Yeah, well, let's say obviously the Formula 2 and Formula 3 are support series. So Formula 1 is the main event, and you have to accommodate around them. So for the vast majority of the European races, we have a track and the awning that goes together. So we are building our equipment in the paddock. We build our team there. For other races, for example, which will be Silverstone, the case, or the flyaway, we have garages or tents that are supplied by the organization where we are located, and usually we are in a parallel paddock. The logistic is now a bit more complicated, but still, I'd say there is a very good deal on the pit lane. We share the same pit lane, obviously. All the teams are sharing the Formula 1 pit wall, so we use their facility in terms of the screens, the TV, or the place to work, which is, I think, I found really nice, and it's really good that you also build some kind of relationship with other teams, with the Formula 1 teams. And the logistic during the weekend, every team has maybe a slightly different concept, but everybody is pretty similar. You work in kind of group or crews, and you go to work together, you come back together. And this is the main idea, let's say, for the time being.
Well, you mentioned just a moment ago about using the Formula 1 garages and the pit wall. So do you stick to the same team? Do you sort of use the same pit wall every time, or do you just get given a different team's equipment to use?
No, basically before the start of the season, every team is associated with one of the Formula 1 teams, and it usually carries over for the season. The only oddball, if you want to call it this way, sometimes was Silverstone, where the Formula 1 teams are shifted around. But usually the rule is that for example, we are with the Formula 2, we are at Alpha Tauri, and we share the pit wall with Trident, for example. So there are two Formula 2 teams per Formula 1 pit wall.
That's quite interesting. Yeah, I didn't something I've just learned, and I guess that's really great experience for the drivers as well, because at the end of the day, it's about, for the drivers, it's about preparation, to continue on into Formula One. So well, in Formula 3, it's obviously a step up into Formula 2. So I guess that's a great experience for them as well to have.
Absolutely, and I mean one of the biggest part of the Formula 2 and Formula 3 is that you live in the same environment as the Formula 1. Obviously, when there were no restrictions, for example, all the Formula 2 drivers had a Formula 1 pass, so they could access the Formula 1 paddock and start knowing people and making your deals or get yourself known, knock on somebody's door and say, hey, I'm here, I'm a good driver, I want to win with you. As humble as a driver can be, obviously. And so this is the big advantage of being in the Formula 2 or Formula 3 paddock. There is you are seen, and now especially with the fact that Formula 2 and Formula 3 are separated, there is even more exposure to all the drivers, to the Formula 1 teams they can see. And I remember also at the time I was doing Formula 1. At some point, we were stopping a meeting or something to watch the Formula 2 or GP2 race that was going on, because at the end of the day, it was always quite entertaining and interesting. More than the Formula 1 sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm hooked. So regarding the sort of inner workings of a Formula 2 team, what are the challenges that you face, the expectations, the goals?
I mean, the biggest challenge, obviously, is to fulfill your expectations, because everybody wants to win and only one wins. And especially when you have young drivers, they expect themselves to excel. But it takes, it's a complicated mixture to get to the top, and you need experience. You need, to create your racecraft. Speed sometimes is not enough to be in the front. So that a lot of this is managing the expectation and make sure that you can fully exploit what the drivers' possibilities are. Sometimes you have to let them understand that that they need to do a step back in order to do 2 steps forwards. And this is obviously one of the challenges in this series that are they're forming the future Formula 1 drivers. And provide them with the best support. On our side, obviously, we try to give them the best structure. We have a fixed structure for the meetings, the debriefs. Try to make it in the most professional way, in the way that is most similar also to what they will find in the future when they will go to a Formula 1 team. If you find that the structure of the meetings and the debrief and what the people discuss and how the engineers work is similar, it's for sure an advantage, rather than coming in and being coming from another planet. So this is one of the things we try to work on. Obviously make things more complicated, because the time in between session in Formula 2 is very tight. It's very complicated to slot everything in and to keep every time yourself in check, and with the timings, with the meetings, with the work on the car, with looking at the data. And obviously being Formula 2 limited in terms of personnel, this is the second next challenge, because you have you cannot have unlimited resources, or you don't have 5, 10, 15 engineers working on your car. And so you have one race engineer, one performance data system engineer, and that's it in terms of engineering. And so it's quite complicated to have a smooth day, let's say.
Yeah, obviously it's quite noticeable that when there's a pit stop, there are far less people around that car. It's especially the tire guys. They're putting the tires on, and why is that exactly? Why is there so few people around that car in a pit stop? Is that a regulation, or is that a financial perhaps reason?
Well, it's a regulation, and there is a limit in terms of how many people you can have in your team. So physically, there is no other option than the one that are attending the pit stop. Plus, the regulation is such. So it's not made for a show like the Formula 1 is, or the 2 seconds or 3 seconds stop. Still, obviously, you need there is a lot of training that goes on with the pit stop crew, because being less, you need to do more. So it's somehow it's even more relevant. The mechanic doing the pit stop is even more important, because it is not a single action, but is a complete choreography of how I put the tires on, how I take it off, where I put the gun, how do I move my hands around, and is for some reason, in some way or in multiple way, it's more complicated than Formula One. So it looks different, it is different, and is actually for many reasons more complicated.
Yeah. Well, regarding the positives, how has the new 2021 format impacted the team?
Oh, well, it's impacting. We have one race more, which obviously is a challenge in terms of the structure, and sometimes due to the schedule, and you could end up working, let's say, very late in the night, because it's you have one more race in the afternoon or in the evening. On the other hand, I think for the show it's quite good. The mix of the way the grid is, the composition of the grid between race 1, race 2, and race 3. I found it's quite interesting. Gives the possibility for someone that didn't qualify well to still have 1 or 2 good races, and the one that qualified well, they can still climb up in the race 1 and race 2. Obviously, there is the downside. If you have a bad race 1, then even your race 2 it's compromised. So perfection doesn't exist, but I think is an interesting change, and I don't know how the fan like it or not, but for sure it gives spice up things quite a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. So just I guess on a more personal note again, do you have any standout moments of your own career, and then maybe any standout moments for the team as well?
Oh goodness, I don't know. I mean, I've been quite lucky in my career. I've been working with really good drivers, really good teams. Obviously, my last 2 years in DTM, winning everything, basically, is I could take that, but I'm really happy about many other times. My first win in IMSA, or even the some of the performance in Formula One with Caterham, with being one of the B or C team. Sometimes when we were still fighting with Renault, it was still pleasant in a different way. So it's difficult to take one precise moment. And I think for the team, being able to compete and be successful in so many different categories, this for sure is the highlight, I would say.
And I thank you so much, really, for just such a wonderful insight into the team. And I think what comes across to me, and what comes across anyway, is you mentioned earlier that the team is quite a large team, but it still feels like a family from the outside looking in. So, that's obviously something that you're a part of, and something that you've perhaps helped to create. So again, I wish you every success.
Thank you very much. Thank you.